Win more gunfights with better positioning.
No way you felt it, right?
He got all three of us, dude.
YouTube, what's going on? It's Mark Clark. Today we're giving you guys 5 position tips to help you win more gunfights. To become the absolute best player you can be, there are 3 main pillars I want you guys to focus on. 1 being aim or gun skill, 2 being movement, and 3 being positioning. These are 3 key components of becoming a better Warzone player. We talk about 1 and 2, which are gun skill / aim and movement in our prior videos. So if you haven't checked those out, make sure you do that. But today we're going to be talking about the 3rd one, which is positioning. Whether you're fighting someone head to head or it's you versus squad, these position tips should help immensely. Let's get right into it. All right, tip number 1 is on right hand advantage. Right hand advantage is a super simple concept to understand, very easy to implement into your gameplay right away. A little bit more of a basic tip, but helpful nonetheless. So basically what right hand advantage is when you peek on the right side, as you can see, your player is holding its gun with his right hand, his left hand is on the grip, therefore he aims right-handed. All your players are right-handed. For all your lefties out there, I'm sorry, but your player is right-handed. Therefore, when you peek on the right side of an object, you show less of your player model to the enemy. This is a really important concept to understand. For instance, if I am peeking right here around this pillar and there's a person in this entryway right here, I'm going to always right hand peek this because it shows less of my player model to the enemy. If you're peeking through the left side, you have to show more of your body to be able to peek this entryway because once again, your player is right-handed, his gun's on the right side, you have to shift more of your body to the left, which makes you more visible and an easier target to hit. So easy rule of thumb, when you're coming up to objects, always try to peek them on the right side. There is instances, which we'll get into later, where you're gonna peek on the left side of objects, but for the most part, always peek on the right side, always giving you this right hand advantage, which makes your player model harder to hit. Tip number 2 is on spacing with doors. What I mean by spacing is essentially giving yourself more space or room in a fight to shield up or to reload. This is extremely important when you're fighting teams of 2, 3, or 4 all by yourself. Let's say, for instance, there's 2 people behind this car right here. I get the knock on one of them, but they get me weak, okay? I need to go shield. I need to reload to re-engage in this fight. I have a downed enemy, but they also know I'm weak, so this other player is probably going to push me. Now, I'm going to use spacing with doors. I have this building to my left right here. I'm going to use this door to create space to reload and shield up. Okay, I'm going to run through this. I'm going to close the door, and the reason you're closing these doors behind you is because now you have an audio cue if they were to chow that, and they are playing aggressive. So if they do break through that door, you're going to know exactly when to re-engage and pick up the kill. So I'm running away. I'm shielding up. I'm reloading. I'm now ready for the next engagement. Now I'm listening for the audio cue. He breaks through the door. I re-engage, and that's an easy squad wipe. Tip number 3 is on perfecting your peaks. This is probably one of the most overlooked tips, but I promise you, if you implement this into your gameplay, it will pay dividends. What I mean by perfecting your peaks, I'm going to give you another example right here. Let's say this is one enemy with the red chest, and this is another enemy. So it's a 2v1 situation. I am back here behind these tires. I cannot bunny hop out of here and chow both of them at the same time. That's completely unrealistic. I'll get shot by both of them and ultimately die. If I want to peek one of these players, let's say I want to peek this first one, I want to take him down before I engage in the left one. Understand this concept right here. The space between the enemy and my cover, which is the tires on the left. So this space right here. So I have the enemy and then this tire right here. The space in between is what I call your dead zone. You want to completely get rid of your dead zone, meaning instead of peeking way out here, showing a lot of your player model, the perfect peek would be essentially having a 0 dead zone, no space in between your cover and the enemy, and peeking right here, leaving no space in the smallest amount of your player model showing. Once again, implementing this right hand advantage we learned from the first tip, but showing as little bit of you as possible and ultimately giving you the perfect peek. Now you down this one guy and you can now engage on the second enemy, taking both of them out. But this perfect peek comes into handy in all situations. Once again, let's say this orange target is our peek. Even if you're behind this heady right here, okay? We are going to peek. Even if we are forced to left-hand chow this, we're going to left-hand chow this with the smallest dead zone possible. Essentially, we want no space between our cover and our enemy. Once again, peeking this with a perfect dead zone and engaging in the enemy, showing the least amount of our player as possible, therefore becoming a very hard target to hit. To take things one step further, once again, we're going to use this orange object as our enemy, and for a more realistic circumstance, we don't know exactly where he is. So we're going to be panning with our reticle. We're going to be looking for him, but to do this in the perfect peek type of way, instead of just popping out here and looking for him, look how much space once again is between my reticle and the cover right here on the right. We're going to try to shrink that as much as possible while we scan for our enemy, while we strafe, while we are looking for our enemy. So once again, if we know he's somewhere in this direction, but we don't know exactly where he is, and this is the only cover we have, we are going to scan for him with our reticle very close to our cover on the right. So once again, we're peeking left while we're keeping this tight. Once we see him, then we can re-engage. But once again, showing the smallest amount of our player model and having the perfect peaks. The last thing I want you guys to understand about this is it doesn't just have to be with left or right hand peaks. This can be over the top of hills, over the top of objects. Let's say there's a player up here on this head glitch behind this wall. Instead of peeking this guy way back here where he can probably see more of my body than I want him to, why not scoot up closer to this object, eliminate the dead zone once again, and get a better peek? I promise you guys, if you think this tip is simple, implement this, really focus on this. I promise it's going to help you win more gunfights. Tip number 4 is on shouldering and using cover. Once again, we've talked about this in the past in our previous videos about shouldering, but when talking about position specifically, using the perfect peaks and shouldering in combination is going to help you re-engage in gunfights in the best way possible, help mix it up for your enemies. What I mean by shouldering, if you guys have never heard it before, once again, we're going to use this orange target right here as our enemy. And what shouldering is essentially going out really quickly out of cover and then back into cover to try to grab intel on your enemy. We can do this in a couple ways. We can use the slide cancel and come back into cover, try to get that small information on the enemy, or we can just throw some tight shoulders right here and try to look for where the enemy is at. Once again, shouldering is all about grabbing intel, understanding, is the enemy pushing me? Is he staying back? What is he doing? For example, let's say we get weak right here. We get all of our shields ripped off. This player is clearly an advantage. We need to shield up. So we're going to come back behind here. Instead of laying down and fully shielding and not knowing where that enemy is at, what we're going to do while we shield is we're going to shoulder our enemy and figure out where he's at. Is he pushing? Is he not? So we're going to be shielding up. If we see him push, maybe we only get one of our 3 shields off. That's okay, because at least we're ready for a gunfight. We re-engage and we get the kill. But let's say he's staying back. Now we get this information that he's staying back, so we can at least put all 3 shields back on before re-engaging. Now, the important part to understand about shouldering, it's not just for gunfight. It's not just to understand where your enemy is to put down shots. Remember to use this for the concept we just talked about, which is shielding and reloading. Use this to buy yourself more time, create that space like we talked about in tip number 2, and I promise you this is going to help you win more gunfights. Tip number 5 is on the no repeek rule. This is extremely effective, but also very simple. All it's saying is you're not going to repeek the enemy in the same spot twice. So if I'm right hand peeking this guy, I'm not going to do this more than once. Let's say we trade shots on the first engagement. I'm going to come back behind cover. I'm not going to peek him from the same exact side. Most likely enemies will be aiming down the same exact side they just shot you. So what this would look like instead, I peek him from the right side and then I re-engage, maybe a bunny hop from the left side. Or to mix it up even further, I can re-peek this right side and then jump over this object and peek the top side. Always be mixing up your angles. Never re-engage from the same exact spot twice. It's easy to die like that. I promise you guys. Re-engage from different angles, mix it up for your enemies, and become harder targets to hit. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for today's tips video. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure to spam the like button. We're going for 50 likes on this video. Also, comment below your KD and your target KD, what you're going for, what you want to improve your KD, and what you want to get to. I'll be responding to all the comments down below. Let me know what you guys thought about the video. I appreciate any feedback as always. Also, if you guys are new around here, make sure to hit the sub button and also turn noties on. I love you guys. Have a great rest of your day, and until next time, peace.